Welcome back. I know you're excited to see what has the house trembling and continue our adventure with Jack up this beanstalk. So I'm not going to waste too much time with introductions. Let's go ahead and get started with part 2 of Jack and the Beanstalk. Goodness gracious, it's my husband, said the giant's wife. What on earth shall I do? Quick, jump in here. And Jack jumped into the oven just as the giant came in. He was a big one, to be sure. He had 3 cows tied to his belt. He threw them down on the table and said rudely to his wife, "Here, wife, cook me a couple of these for breakfast. But wait, what's this I smell? Fee, fi, fo, bum. I smell the blood of an Englishman." "Now, dear," said his wife, "it's nothing but the leftover smell of the little boy you had for dinner yesterday. Go along and wash up, and by the time you come back, I'll have breakfast ready." So the giant went off, and Jack was about to jump out of the oven when the woman whispered, "Wait till he's asleep. He always has a nap after breakfast." The giant gulped down his breakfast. Then he went to a giant chest and took out 2 big bags. He sat down from the bags. He took out piles of gold coins and began to count them very slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then his head began to nod. And soon he began to snore, so that the whole house shook. Jack crept out of the oven, tiptoed past the giant, grabbed one of the bags of gold, which he could barely lift, and ran lickety-split back to the beanstalk. He threw down the bag of gold, which fell into his mother's garden, then climbed down until at last he reached the ground. "Well, Mother," he said, "wasn't I right about the beans? They really are magic." For a while, Jack and his mother bought what they needed and a little more with the bag of gold. But at last the bag was empty. So Jack made up his mind to try his luck again at the top of the beanstalk. He climbed and he climbed and he climbed. And once again, sure enough, there was the great tall woman standing on the doorstep of her house. And once again, he asked for something to eat. "Go away, boy," said the woman, "or else my husband will eat you up for breakfast." "But say, aren't you the youngster who came here once before? Do you know on that very day, my husband lost one of his bags of gold?" "Did he now?" said Jack. "How very strange. Maybe I could help you find it, but I'm so hungry that first I must have something to eat." So the great tall woman gave him something to eat. He'd hardly taken a bite when, thump, 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 they heard the giant's footsteps. Once again, the wife hid Jack in the oven. It all happened as it had before. In came the giant, bellowing, "Fee, fi, fo, fum." Then after gulping down 3 broiled oxen for breakfast, the giant said, "Wife, bring me my hen and my golden harp." The wife brought them. The giant looked at the hen and barked, "Lay!" And the hen laid an egg all of gold. Then the giant looked at the golden harp and said, "Sing!" And the golden harp sang beautifully, and it went on singing until the giant fell asleep and started snoring like thunder. Jack sneaked out of the oven and crept like a mouse on his hands and knees. Then he crawled up to the table, grabbed the hen and golden harp, and dashed toward the door. But the hen began to cluck, and the harp called out, "Master! Master!" The giant woke up just in time to see Jack running away with his treasures. Jack ran as fast as he could, and the giant came bounding after him and would have caught him, only Jack had a head start. When Jack got to the beanstalk, he climbed down as fast as he could. The giant reached the beanstalk and stopped short. He didn't like the idea of climbing down such a ladder, but like it or not, the giant swung himself down onto the beanstalk, which shook with his weight. By the time Jack had climbed down and reached home, "Mother!" he cried, "Give me the axe and hurry!" His mother came running out with the axe in her hand. She ran with Jack to the beanstalk, and then she screamed with fright as she saw the giant making his way down. Jack swung the axe and gave a chop at the beanstalk. The giant felt the beanstalk shake, and he stopped to see what was the matter. Jack gave another chop, and another, and the beanstalk began to topple over. Then the giant fell down and broke his crown, and the beanstalk came tumbling after. From then on, Jack and his mother had all the money and music they wanted, for the hen gave them golden eggs, and the harp sang for them all day long, and they lived happily ever after. The end. See? He got his happily ever after. Now, let's go ahead and answer some questions about the second part of Jack and the Beanstalk. So, the giant's wife tells Jack that he should hide in the oven in the beginning of this part of the fairy tale when the rude giant comes into the house to gulp down his breakfast, because the giant likes to eat little boys. So we know that. Once the giant falls asleep, Jack is able to start making his way around a little bit. What is the first treasure that Jack takes from the giant? First treasure he takes. Excellent. A bag of gold coins. Yes. Jack takes a bag of gold coins. Not just any old coins. These coins are made out of gold. And we've learned about minerals. You know, that's kind of a big deal. We've learned about rocks, gems, and minerals. Okay. Now, he gets the gold, he goes back down, everything's peachy keen. Oh no, we're out of money, what do we do? So Jack goes back up the beanstalk a second time because they've spent the gold. How does the giant's wife treat Giant the second time? She treats him the same. She treats him kindly. She gives him breakfast and helps him hide. So the giant's wife treats Jack the same. She treats him the same. She treats him kindly. She's kind to him. She's very kind to him. She gives him breakfast, even though he's being a little bit deceitful. But yeah, she gives him breakfast. She hides him from her husband because she knows that he's going to eat him if he finds them. So, you know, not too bad, I would say. Jack takes from the giant this time a hen that lays golden eggs and a harp that sings. What happens when Jack tries to escape with the hen and the harp? What happens when Jack tries to escape with the hen and the harp? The giant wakes up and comes after him. Well, what woke him up? You mean that loud little harp woke him up? Oh, I guess he likes it there. I don't know. So, what happens when Jack tries to escape with the hen and the harp? The harp wakes the giant. Good. The harp wakes the giant, which causes him to chase after Jack, and then timber! Fell down and broke his crown. That was the end of that, rude giant. Well, that is also the end of our story. But my final question is, what parts of this fairy tale are fantasy? There were several fantasy or magical elements to this story. What was the first magic thing? What was the first thing that was magic? beanstalk, yes. How about this beanstalk that sprouted up overnight in the first place? That's pretty magical if you ask me. Plants do not grow like that. As someone who has tried to grow plants a few times, it is definitely not a quick process. So yes, the beanstalk and climbing it, the hen that lays golden eggs, the singing harp, the giant, the woman who's like almost giant size, all of these things are magical. The beans from the beginning, there is so much fantasy and magic in this story. It really is very interesting to when you think about it, break it all down. But yes, this story had several different pieces of fantasy and magic. And another thing that it had that we've seen in almost all of our fairy tales is that they lived happily ever after. And actually, guys, this is the end of our domain for fairy tales. I know it has been a wonderful journey with you, and I'm so glad that we got to finish it together. But that's all I have for now, and I can't wait to see you guys next time. Bye!